we don't care about that, but I just thought that was crazy that I got that on my computer.
Yeah. All good. So we will move on to the NFL here then on the Last Inning Touchdown Podcast, the Lit Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Google Playlist.
It's lit.
Find us on Twitter, Last Inning TD. NFL. So, Super Bowl happened.
I was
Yowzers.
1,000% right in my prediction. Yikes.
Honestly, I was bored. I didn't really find the game all that interesting.
I was not. I was incredibly intrigued.
I don't know. I was watching it and I just was not that into it. Like I think that.
Were you into last year's Super Bowl?
I don't even think
Niners Chiefs?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even think I watched last year's Super Bowl.
Dude, it was like it was a snooze fest in my opinion. But this year, I was like, the reason why I was so intrigued. I was in such shock at what was happening that I was like, I didn't really think I was gonna be that intrigued to watch Super Bowl. And I know it's crazy coming from a sports podcast. I really like Super Bowl, but I can't. As someone as we are both from St. Louis, Kansas City fans are like the hardest to deal with when it comes to their success in anything, and especially I can't handle it when it comes to. I can handle it more in football. I can't handle it in baseball because football they've been good for a while, but their fans are really annoying. So I tend to see myself rooting against them a lot of the time. But at this time, I was like rooting. It's like rooting for the villain in Tom Brady, because who also beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, or the team's fans, so I just don't like that much. But I was in such shock at the absolute domination of the Buccaneers defense and offense. That I didn't know what to do. Like the Bucs scored at will. People are like, well, they only scored like 30 points. It's like for some things, I mean, 30 point Super Bowls is nuts.
Well, yeah, because first of all, you're saying that these are the top two teams.
They wanted to, and they scored when they wanted to. You have to realize when they took that big lead, all of a sudden you do realize they burned like 6 minutes on one drive, gained 50 yards, and punted because they ran the ball in every single play.
Yeah,
I mean they scored when they wanted to, and when they stopped wanting to was when all of a sudden they were like, man, we got like a 3.5, like we got like a 4-score lead here or 3-score lead here, and all of a sudden this Chiefs team is running out of time. I'm not going to be the team to call a slant play that a safety comes up and pick sixes that bitch. I'm not like you're not going to do something like that. That's why I feel like, well, Brady was off in the fourth. No, he was throwing footballs in only spots his players could have caught it. Like even though like it wasn't the best catch, like they scored at will. Their defense, it was the most, like I said going into the Super Bowl, that the Chiefs game against the Bucs was the most impressive win all season. From any game I watched, it was two amazing teams, and the Chiefs just nuked them for 3 quarters. It was 3 quarters of just an absolute slaughter after the Bucs went up like 9-0, or Bills went up 9-0. And then that was outperformed 2 weeks later. That Buccaneers, it was a flawless execution game plan. I mean, it was Patrick Mahomes didn't score a touchdown. He got
Patrick Mahomes, honestly, despite the fact that he had no stats, like he played out of his mind to even give them a shot.
I'm not blaming Patrick Mahomes at all. Like they had 29 pressures, 27 of them came without a blitz. Like I mean, that's just not. I mean, you have no chance, right? Patrick Mahomes had no chance. He had what would have been the greatest play that never mattered in NFL history. That the running back out of LSU, who just has stone hands, didn't even get the stone hands on the ball, hit him right in the face mask on 4th down. Would have been the greatest play that never mattered. But it was, no one is really, I don't think anyone in the world is really blaming Patrick Mahomes that I see, even on Twitter or anywhere. Yeah. I think everyone's really going to the Chiefs. I mean, they had a couple brutal drops early. Kelsey had a brutal drop to turn into a 50-yard punt, but there was a penalty, and then the punter shanked it for 19 yards. I mean, it was they just bit themselves in the ass over and over and over again, and they just really struggled. And then people were complaining about the flags in the first half.
that was the hardest part.
Every flag but one of them was correct. They were the correct calls. I don't give a crap about the game. Oh, it was nitpicky. Mike Evans got tripped. There's replays on Twitter everywhere that Mike Evans got tripped on accident. Was it an accident? Yeah, but it still changed the play. Both guys on the end of that field goal lined up well into the neutral zone, well offsides. I mean, they're just stupid mistakes. And do I think that that is bullshit they're calling him in the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Because if you're just don't be an idiot.
Well, because then when you don't call it and then the Buccaneers lose, then it's gonna be like last year with the Saints Rams. Then that's the reason they lost, and it's gonna be everywhere.
He blocked the field goal, but he was lined off like a full yard offside.
He's like the kid that you played in Madden that made his guy like run next to the kicker, so as soon as you hiked it, he'd just tackle your kicker.
And not to call the flag, like there was one horrible flag that did change a small part of it. It changed a 4-point swing. The Buccaneers going into halftime threw a pass into the end zone. They called it a pass interference on Tyrann Mathieu, which was the correct call. The issue was the ball was not catchable. So in that case, the flag gets picked up. Brady threw the ball almost into the stands. He threw the ball like 20 yards over his receiver. I mean, it was nowhere close. And they kept the flag. They got the ball to one and threw a touchdown the next play. I mean, would the Bucks have scored a touchdown? I mean, maybe, but I mean that.
Well, really, here's the thing, though.
It would have been, instead of going +3 on that possession from a field goal, it went +7 on a touchdown, and every point matters. I mean, so anyone who's complaining about the penalties either just doesn't understand football. They're all just stupid. I mean, they just kept biting them. They just kept kicking themselves in the ass. I mean, it's just not. It wasn't the Bucks' problem, and it wasn't the refs' problem. That the Chiefs were just for some reason acting like they've never played football before.
Well, and on that pass interference in the end zone, the thing is though, like I get that Brady didn't throw that pass where it was catchable, but at the same time, like the defender can't put himself in the situation where the ref has to decide is that ball catchable. Yep. Like you put yourself in a situation where the ref has to say is that catchable or not, and you don't really. I mean, you do know, but in live action on the field, you don't necessarily know because the play never even got to develop because you interfered with him so badly that they're like, I have no idea if that would have been catchable because he wasn't anywhere near it because of you.
Kind of what happened on the Mike Evans ball. Like the ball looked like it was overthrown, but because he was accidentally tripped on the heel,
you never got a chance to even see it.
He never even got a chance to dive or anything. Like Mike Evans is 6'6". Like that's exactly what the rules specialist said. He goes, that rep is not going to determine whether 6'6" freak of nature, 1,000-yard machine Mike Evans is going to catch that ball.
Yeah, that's the tough situation is in general, first of all, the hardest thing, as you were saying about the Chiefs fans, living in St. Louis, all of our social media with people that live in the area, all of it, every single post was the refs, the refs, the refs, the refs, the refs. Are you even watching this game? Because guess what? The refs aren't going to call that if your guys aren't giving them a reason to call it. Even if you want to say that all of those flags were 50-50, you blame your defensive player for even putting themselves in that situation. Because it is your job to make the play without a penalty. You're putting your entire team at risk by even coming close to that situation. And so you can't blame the refs for any of it. It's not like it was like blatantly bad. It's not like Mike Evans, stumbled a little bit but was 30 yards away from the ball. It's like the dude full on fell, and in live action, literally you're like, that dude just got tripped. And then I happened to look up at a different replay, and I was like, "Oh, did he even touch him?" But then you had said that the slow motion from the other angle clearly showed it.
Angle that showed that it touched it, like very obviously the touchdown. And my thing with that is, it's live. I thought it was a touchdown.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he hit the floor, and I literally was like, "Well, it's a flag," because when he threw it live, I was literally sitting. I was sitting on my couch and I was watching it with a girl who doesn't really watch football. In the second the ball was thrown, I screamed, touchdown! And then he goes down, and I go, "Oh my god!" And then I was like, and then when that happened, I go, "That was a smart flag," because the defender would rather take a 40-yard penalty than a 60-yard touchdown, and that's a smart flag. But then everyone on the internet said that wasn't a flag. He tripped over his own feet. That's just a false statement.
But that's the thing is, even if he did stumble on his own feet, it was after being interfered with twice. I mean, the guy stumbled and then pushed him and then tripped him up. I get that it was an accident, but he shoved Evans when he fell and then tripped him when he fell. So it's like
it was anyone exactly just like I was saying. Like we hear a lot of, and just like Jason, when the Cardinals fans bitch about stuff and I bitch about stuff in our group chats, but it was really brutal to listen to, and I hated when they went to the halftime and they go, "The refs got to let these guys play." I'm sorry,
I heard that too.
And then are we just not going to call flags? I mean, literally on the first possession of the Bucks. Of the first possession of the game, Tony Romo said something along the lines. I'm not going to say I don't know the exact quote, but it was, "The Chiefs get away with more holds than anyone in football." And then immediately they threw a flag for a defensive hold. And he goes, "What's going to happen here is he's going to break his cut, and the defender's going to wrap his waist with his hand, slowing him down slightly, and that's a penalty every single time. And it throws off timings." And guess what? You don't think Bruce Arians and them alerted the refs to this because people think like teams alert refs going into games. Both sides do. Of these are their tendencies that are against the rules, and like we want to break that because it's also part of their gameplay. The Chiefs do that on purpose
Well,
because they
that
get away with it. And Tony Romo called it out. They get away with more defensive holds than anyone in football. And Tony Romo's the guy to listen to when it comes to defensive holds. He was a quarterback. I mean,
and
the guy
that's
knows what
not
he's
to
doing.
mention the fact that anyone that's played a sport knows that if someone is doing something in the game, you're telling the ref. Like even in baseball, like I remember growing up, we'd be like, "Hey, they're balking every time. He's not coming set every time. You know,
Yeah,
whatever it
it's like
is.
he's
You
twitching.
know,
Like when I was in high school,
yeah,
10 years ago, they would twitch their left calf. Like they would try to to make it look like they were about to lift off, and then they wouldn't lift off. In high school refs, hard to see that. But you argue
right."
like the other team's tendencies and what they do that are against the rules that they're trying to get an advantage with, and that's fine. But when all of a sudden you get called on your things that are against the rules for advantages, and you're gonna say, why are they calling me for that? So I'm literally, if anyone Chiefs want to blame anything, they got dominated in the second half anyway. Patrick Mahomes was hurt. Their offensive line couldn't do anything. But do not blame the rest of that first
Well, and
half.
that's the thing is too.
Everything
I
was
can't.
shooting themselves in the foot. I cannot get over that I watched an NFL team in a Super Bowl have both edge rushers on a field goal line up offsides.
I can't believe the problem I have. This is the thing. If you're gonna blame the refs for losing, the game
Don't
has to
lose
at
by
least
20.
the game has to be close. That's literally what I would say. The game has to be close. You cannot be getting murdered and then say the refs are losing me the game. What do you mean? The
What
refs
was the
didn't give
score?
up a billion points. Like you gave up those points. Like it doesn't
Do you
even
know the
make sense.
score of the game?
Was it like 31-9 or
Yeah, it
something?
was like 31-9 or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
31-9. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean
To
it's
lose by 3 touchdowns, and then people
that's the thing
say,
is, you know, if
"Well,
you
the
lost
refs
by a
blew."
touchdown or a field goal or even 10 points, like okay, maybe you could argue that some momentum shifted there. The Chiefs net I don't even think the Chiefs had a drive that I was like, "Oh yeah, the Chiefs look good today." Like not one drive
All
was
of a
I
sudden, they're
like
like,
the
when they came out after halftime, and they went after
Yeah,
halftime.
yeah, yes. Yeah, there was that
When they
little
came
bit
out
after
after
half. I remember texting you guys
it
saying,
was
"Oh, I think the Chiefs are going to make it interesting." And
no,
then
my thing
nothing
was
after that.
yeah, my thing was I go, they have to score a touchdown to start the half. And then they got a bad kick return, and they went 47 yards to kick the field goal. When they kicked the field goal, I'm like, that's a problem.
That ain't it.
The Chiefs don't kick field goals when they're down this much, and they normally run the field. And all of a sudden we go, okay, it's 21-13. We got a one-score game here, but then they were down 12. And then the Bucks went right down and scored again. They went up 28-9. All of a sudden it was big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Cuz
Big
that
trouble.
felt big. You know,
What was
that
that you
lead
kind of cut out?
I said that felt big. Like that lead when they were up 28, it was when they had 28, you're like,
28 to
"Oh, this
9.
yeah,
That's a
you're like this
three-score game.
you're like that's not close anymore." You know, like
I mean, that's two touchdowns, two-point conversions, and a field goal to tie. It's the quickest way you're getting back into that.
absolutely. That to me is why the game wasn't interesting. The Chiefs just looked so bad that the game was just not interesting.
I was
That's
so interested because I could not understand how the Bucks made the 14-2 Chiefs a team that has only lost one time since losing to Tennessee in the middle of last year without Patrick Mahomes starting, because they went 14-2 this year, but Mahomes didn't play week 17. They've literally lost one time since like week 9 of 2019. Get absolutely slaughtered.
well, and that's the thing is, I mean, the Buccaneers defense was there were two guys on Tyreek Hill the entire game. Tyreek Hill could not move.
You want to know
So
whose idea that was? Of Bill Belichick from like the last decade.
right.
His goal is to
That's
take the most
exact. So
dangerous guy out of the
that's
game.
exactly what I was getting ready to say. Was I feel like Tom Brady definitely told the Buccaneers, "Look, we're gonna do Belichick here. We're gonna take out the one weapon. Let him hit Kelsey all day long because Kelsey's big and he's a threat, but he's not gonna single-handedly
Hill
beat you."
changes the level of the field. He changes the spacing. So if you can just take Hill out of it, all of a sudden everyone else's job becomes more jam packed because Hill creates this massive space problem by all of a sudden the field is 60 yards instead of 35 yards because
Right.
he's so much faster than everybody else. And they just took him out of the game and just said, okay, here we go. And that's what the Patriots did when they beat the Chiefs in the
Scotty
AFC
Miller says
Championship.
he's faster than Tyreek Hill.
That's hilarious. I love Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller also
I tried to
broke
get him in my Madden franchise.
he broke his phone. He broke one of his boys' phones. I think it was Chris Godwin, maybe Mike Evans. He dropped his phone into the lake or the river or the
Womp
ocean, whatever they were
womp.
celebrating in. And yeah, I do. My one thing I do want left I want to talk about the Super Bowl is I think Brady did exactly what he needed to do. I think, like I said, they scored at will.
And
I
is
think
that
they were
not what we
dominating the football
said
game.
Brady does? Is he's always going to
And
do exactly what he had to do.
and guess what? He could have thrown for another 100 yards and a touchdown in the last quarter and a half when he basically just handed the ball off the rest of the time because they were up so much. But my thing is in my opinion, I know they gave it to him because he's 43 and he won a 7 Super Bowl. Devin White was the biggest game changer in that game because the offense played perfectly and the defense played perfectly. But that defense, they picked off Mahomes 3 times, and Devin White, 14 tackles, two pass defends, and a pick that sealed it. He's the guy who got the pick with like 6 minutes left when they were up 3 scores, and it was like, all right, it's over. Like it's official. They don't have time left because like, oh, if they score right now on this pass, we can do this. And then Devin White picked it off, and then it's like, okay, there's just no time left. It's over. Like it's
Right.
officially over. And
The other the
Devin
la-
White, that's nuts. 14 tackles,
oh,
2 pass defense, and a pick as a linebacker. I mean, he was all over Travis Kelsey. He had, yeah, it was just great to see. Sucks he didn't get it. I thought he should. I
the
thought he
last
deserved it.
my last little tidbit for the Super Bowl, in general, it's kind of to football sports fans all around. At some point, I don't understand the idea of let's hate the most successful people. Like, people need to realize that, like, just appreciate the fact that you're probably watching something that will never happen again. Like, you are watching a guy that has won 10 or been in 10 Super Bowls in his career. Like, you will never see that again, probably. Like,
Yeah,
you need to
a
just,
single quarterback
yeah,
starting 10 Super
you
Bowls.
need to, as a sports fan, just appreciate the fact that, like, you literally got to watch sports history. Like there is going to be in, a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations that still talk about what you literally got to watch. So stop hating just to be doing it. Like, you literally just got to watch sports greatness. If he retires, you watch sports greatness for the last 20 years and just appreciate that.
I
And
mean,
that's really all that.
that's how it is in all sports. Like I mean, but baseball might be the exception, but like football has this problem. Basketball obviously has the problem of hating LeBron James, who went to 8 straight NBA Finals.
Yeah, I can't
Like
stand that. Like,
how does one guy who's clearly the best player on every team he played for and was the best player in the league the whole time go to 8 straight finals and then everyone just tell him how bad he is?
well, and then LeBron
Like
James kind of makes me mad too because LeBron James did it on 3 different teams. And one of those teams was not supposed to be good at all. And then second, and I'm not a basketball guy at all, but here's the thing. LeBron James off the court is like one of the best people in the world. That dude is like opening schools and donating money here and there. I mean, that dude is amazing. How do you hate that?
so that's one thing I've always argued about
How do you
LeBron.
hate that?
That's one thing I've always argued about LeBron is the fact that the dude was put on a pedestal at 15. He played his first ESPN game at 15 years old, and nicknamed the chosen one at 16 on a Sports Illustrated magazine. The dude would travel. There's just I've watched a lot of videos on like his young stuff about like what he would do, and he'd be going and traveling to these cities, and he's got like women, like women, like older college, older women trying to get into his hotel rooms because they want
Like, talk
to,
about
be with
distraction.
him. And imagine, by the way, if that were the opposite, where all of a sudden you had like a bunch of like adult men trying to get into a 16-year-old girl's hotel room, regardless. But you're sitting there watching this, and you're like, he's been in the limelight since he was 16, at 15, right? Let's say 15 or 16, whatever. And he grew up with technology, having, this isn't, the 90s or the 80s. He grew up with technology. And how
Definitely
many
could have got
guys have
himself in trouble.
fallen from the limelight? How many guys have done so many things wrong? Tiger Woods was the greatest thing ever. And all of a sudden he went from one of the greatest things to watch who did everything right to all of a sudden, man, this guy's been sleeping with a lot of women and he's married with kids. Like, that's a problem. And
Right.
LeBron's done everything right. He's opened schools. He's been the best basketball player for a long time. He's won championships, but people hated him for it. He's lost championships. People hate him for it. He's taken the worst teams. He's taken teams that then won 10 games the next year to NBA finals the previous year. And then they said he was bad for it. Him and investors spent like $200 million and opened up a school district in his hometown of Akron that struggles to try to help the good. I mean, just like what you're saying is like you hate this greatness, and you have guys like Brady has some question marks with like these scandals, but then you have like a guy like LeBron who's really done nothing wrong, and everyone just hates to hate instead of enjoying the greatness as it's coming, which is kind of the
Right.
point you were making.
Right.
Just watch, just enjoy,
Just
Mike
appreciate
Trout,
it.
just
Yeah.
enjoy Albert Pujols 10 years ago, just enjoy LeBron James, just enjoy Tom Brady. Like, no quarterbacks ever started more than like 4 Super Bowls, right? And this man started 10. I mean, he's got more Super Bowls than any franchise in the sport. I mean,
His
the victories
daughter has touched more Super Bowl trophies than Cowboys wins in the last 20 years of the playoffs.
like the dude,
His daughter's
it,
8.
it's just crazy, dude. They what they did, like why people hate all these guys all the time is just kind of baffling. Just like, can you not enjoy? Like, I'm not the biggest Tom Brady fan, but I can respect what I'm watching, and just like this man is 43 years old. You know, I mean, people didn't do this. He's changing how people take care of their bodies. I mean, Rodgers and Breeze are following suit. Breeze, I mean, not really following suit, kind of in the same boat, but I mean, athletes are lasting longer. Things are like, this is impressive what these guys are doing. Guys like
When it's like
LeBron James winning
LeBron,
MVP, like Aaron Rodgers won an MVP at 37. LeBron James is battling for an MVP at 36 and 37. Tom Brady's won 3 Super Bowls in the last friggin' or 4 Super Bowls in the last 7 years, and he's that's like from 36 to 43. I mean, the dude, they're freaks. I mean, they're just the sports world is changing, and people don't realize that we got to realize that Tom Brady's been playing since 2000.
that's insane.
Patrick Mahomes was in kindergarten. Like like people's bodies are crazy. The science behind it. I remember watching the videos like, "What's your cheat day, Tom Brady?" And he goes, "What's a cheat day?" And he's at this point when he said that he was like 37 years old. I mean,
Right.
this is a lifestyle, obviously, to these
Yeah.
guys, and it's just impressive to see the just utter domination of the sport that they do, and also watching how they do it, and it's just an impressive feat overall.
Absolutely. So the other part that I was thinking about too, when you were this is kind of on a different note. So I know that we were just talking about basketball, and basketball is like really known for like players having a lot of say in the front office. Well, good old boy Russell Wilson got himself in a little bit of trouble by making statements that he wants to be involved in the Seahawks decisions moving forward. And the Seahawks have come out and said that they don't appreciate him saying that, basically. So it is interesting because I know Aaron Rodgers was kind of the same way. It's interesting that you're starting to see more of these types of players branch out of the NBA. You're starting to get these players that want to make more decisions around their franchises. I don't know. I think that I understand it in basketball because it's such a smaller sport. There's so few players, right? So like you're like who you want to play with is kind of a much bigger deal. But it's like, man, in football that's kind of tough to say because it's like there's a lot of players that Russell Wilson, his opinion on doesn't really matter. Like your entire defensive side of the football, none of those guys care what Russell Wilson says. Like,
what more could Russell Wilson ask for besides a decent offensive line, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Chris Carson?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I
mean,
don't understand the complaining,
that's a
but
number one / number two in Tyler Lockett, and a pure number one back. I mean, he's got plus him in a decent offensive line. I mean, what do you want, Tom Brady to respect? Like, no, people went to Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's
Tom Brady.
It's tough there too, and I think that part of what he is saying is that he wants like basically to say they need a better offensive line. Like he's sick of getting pressured all the time. But I mean, how many quarterbacks in the NFL do we talk about are getting pressured all the time, and the offensive line's not what it should be? And I mean, it is what it is, but I just don't know that
there's so many bad offensive lines, dude. Like the quarterbacks nowadays are so much better than they were in the past, and you get a lot of these guys good offensive lines are going to be successful. I'm not saying as successful as some of the pro like superstars are, but you get some of these guys right offensive lines. You proved it. You had the best quarterback in the NFL. His offensive line got a little hurt, and all of a sudden he was rendered useless.
Yeah, I don't know. I just look at like when I'm looking at large team sports. Maybe I'm still old school, but I just don't personally think it is any one player's job to worry about what the franchise is doing. If you're unhappy with the front office, then ask to leave. Deshaun Watson. If you're unhappy with what they're doing, ask to leave. I don't think you should be saying I should be a part of these conversations. Now, it's one thing if the franchise or the front office wants to come to you and say, hey, we're looking to add these pieces. Are there guys that you
Yeah.
think would work well with you. That's one thing. Like, but I don't know if it's really your place as the quarterback to go in and say, "Man, we need to change how we're doing this, and you need to let me help you decide that stuff." Like,
Yeah, make these decisions or it's a problem. And like the thing with that
yeah,
is like I can guarantee like GMs and coaches and owners care that their franchise future quarterbacks care and they want to try to be in on those decisions. But if you just come in saying, I need $50 million worth of players in these three players and they can only be offense and blah blah blah, it's like you can't
especially
do
on a
stuff like
team that's
that.
defense is their biggest problem.
And you're sitting there and you're sitting here watching this and you're like, man, this is kind of like it's just weird because the NFL, it's funny. NBA, the players really do have a lot of power, and in football, they're trying to show they have power, and the owners go, "Okay, have fun playing somewhere else."
Well, yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, a lot of times too, if that power you want becomes too much of a distraction, the NFL will just say, "I guess you're done," and nobody will sign you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the thing is the NFL in general has such a short lifespan for a lot of these players, anyways. That if you're going to be a distraction, they say, "Okay, well, we don't want you."
is that
You
that
know,
really
and,
you
and, and
spend
then
so
you
much
end up
time, you
on,
got to
and
be,
then you
you
end
got to
up
be
on, then you end up on the Jets because nobody else is even going to care. Like nobody else wants
well.
you.
Well, ask. I mean, seriously, you had a guy who was a perennial first team All Pro. Antonio Brown was kicked out of the league because no one wanted to deal with this shit anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not. I mean, Le'Veon Bell was kind of the same way too. He was moved from the Steelers because of his nonsense,
Yeah, you really got to
and then
realize
and
how
then went to the Jets because that's one of the few teams that would put up with him probably. And
and then they
then
didn't, and then they cut him. You really
right,
got to realize, and this might be a weird take. Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat a little bit, which is weird because they were just really good, but then they kind of fell off at the end. I don't think Mike Tomlin should really be on the hot seat. But and if I'm a team, and I would love to see Mike Tomlin. If I'm a team looking for a coach, I'd love to see Mike Tomlin get fired because I would love to take him. But um, that man really needs to get some credit for having
oh my
Antonio
God,
Brown and Le'Veon Bell on the same team, and
and
no one
Juju.
knew it was a problem. But Juju was young for the last, like he was only there for
Well,
two
you know
years
what I'm
together.
saying though,
But
but
he
I
was
mean,
really, really young.
you're
Now he's
starting
got to
now.
deal with Juju.
Now that Juju's like a free agent, you're starting, his last year with the Steelers, possibly, you're starting to hear from him a lot more too, and you're starting to see he has a personality too. It's just like,
The thing with those guys is you didn't know they had personalities.
right, you didn't even know they were a problem at all.
Like Juju had a personality, but his was more just being internet famous. I believe he signed with FaZe and all this stuff, and he reps some stuff, and that's fine. FaZe, for people that don't know, is like a big esports organization, but like he does all this stuff, and that's fine. But I'm talking about just like, man, this guy was a like these guys were problems on teams. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, Antonio Brown came out and yelled at Big Ben, and all of a sudden, everyone said, All of a sudden, people said, "Man, Big Ben's the good guy here." And then all of a sudden, he gets traded, and he's a problem. Then he gets traded again, and he's a
Yeah.
problem. And traded again, he's a problem. And you're like, man, Mike Tomlin really must have a good job. And it took Antonio Brown 2 full years of just garbageness to sign with Tom Brady and win Super Bowl.
Well, so what's funny about that is talking about Antonio Brown getting traded and becoming a problem. The rumor on the street is that the Raiders want to sign Juju. So I guess the Raiders just really like trying to pick up the Steelers' large personality wide receivers. I don't know, but I just thought that was an interesting little thing that I had heard as well. Also,
Raiders.
little, I mean, big name. Not as big of a player anymore, but a great guy. J.J. Watt is no longer with the Houston
Yeah.
Texans.
Yeah, I
And
know.
he'll get picked up because he's a great guy. And
What do you mean get picked up? The dude's gonna be dominant. The dude's
yeah,
just
I mean, he's a guy that's struggled with injuries a lot, but he's
oh
still
yeah.
really good.
When he wasn't hurt, he was the literal best defensive player in
And
the
and
NFL.
and when he caught those passes for touchdowns, that was so sick. Like that was unheard of. So I don't know. I hope J.J. Watt finds a nice home and has a good rest of his career because he's such a good person. And the rumor on the street is that this has nothing to do with the Deshaun Watson situation.
Well,
That
he
this
kind of
doesn't. Well, they're
he
basically
kind of
saying that.
stated that Deshaun Watson to keep doing his thing.
Yeah,
Keep doing your thing. When he was saying like I want all this out, he kind of had Watson's back a little bit.
yeah,
And he's at the point of his career now where he's like, I should probably go win a title.
yeah. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. The reports are that Houston's not giving up on Deshaun Watson yet, and that there's misinformation. But I don't know. I guess we'll see how that goes.
Really not. It's really not misinformation. From one of them. It's from the owner. The
Yeah.
owner is saying, "Oh no, there's no problems here."
Yeah. He's
And then
like,
and then the
I'm just
players
ignoring
and all the
everybody.
reporters are saying, "Well, your player says there's a problem." No one says that you've said there was a problem. Everyone's saying the player said there was a problem.
Right.
So that's a little different because this isn't like a Deshaun Watson saying, "Oh no, no, there's no problem." I don't know why everyone's saying that. This is a guy who never said it was a problem is saying, "Oh, this isn't a problem."
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know, but I think that's it for football here on the Last Inning Touchdown podcast. So that means we are going to wrap up the podcast here at the Last Inning Touchdown podcast. We really do appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You follow the podcast on Spotify. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Last Inning TD. Make sure you have notifications so you know when we post something. We do appreciate you guys' support. We will catch you guys next time.
Bye.